What I want to know is how does one get involved in doing rock work as a woman? Do you really, really want to know? Or do you just want the rehearsed response that I always give? What would happen if we chose to really tell the truth about ourselves? Like if we really, really just told the real truth of our lives? I'm not saying that it's true. I'm saying that it's my truth.
You're listening to Hammered.
Music was always a really big part of my life. My first record was Puff the Magic Dragon by Peter, Paul, and Mary, I think. I loved that song so much, and I used to play it over and over and over, and I would just cry. I wasn't sure why I was crying, but it just really made me sad. And then my second cousin babysat us one night, and he drove a MG Midget Forest Green, and he was kind of overweight. And back then you didn't see too many teenage boys that were overweight. It was kind of an odd thing, but he was real nice. His hair was parted way on one side, and he brought over that record Help by the Beatles. And I played it all night. I just kept playing it over and over and over, and he would laugh. And I love that song so much. And I don't know if it's because I just resonated with it, like I was, help, I need somebody, help, not just anybody, help. Come on, I need someone, help. And the next day when I woke up, he left that record, and I was so happy. And on the flip side, the song was I'm Down. I'm down, I'm really down. And it was like, oh, there's another anthem. But music was always in my life, and my parents both liked music, and they kind of like country and, Glenn Campbell and Johnny Cash and stuff like that, which I love Glenn Campbell, and Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head. That was the theme to Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, and I'd cry on that one. And so I was always sort of like in touch with music. And then when I got into high school and I started running track, I remember having the soundtrack from A Star Is Born with Barbra Streisand singing Are You Watching Me Now? And I had the entire song memorized in my head. And when I would run the 880, which was, a long, not a mile, but almost, but you had to go full speed. And I would run that event, and that song from the second it started until the finish would be in my mind. So I always had this real dramatic thing going on inside of me. And I don't know if it was just that I was so self-absorbed and full of self-pity, but I really just felt sad. And music sort of tapped into those places that I couldn't express myself. So around 6th grade, the song came out, and it was Todd Rundgren, Hello, It's Me. And to this day, that song is probably my most favorite song in the world. I don't even know why. It's not even that deep, but it does something to me on a visceral level. Like I can barely listen to it. Sometimes I can, sometimes I can't. And it's just, it touches something. And so high school years, Peter Frampton came along. Oh my God, he reminded me of Brad, my next door neighbor. He reminded me of him so much. And I loved him, and I loved Frampton Comes Alive, and I was obsessed with it. I played it, I just wore it out. But my favorite song on that album was Lines on My Face, another downer, but just so deep. And what I started realizing, because I would read any magazine article or anything about people, singers that I liked, and it seemed like they always wrote music when they were in pain from a breakup or a love affair or something like that. So I really felt like Lines on My Face was like my song. But then when I was at Brevard College, there was an album, and I had loved Fleetwood Mac. I'd seen Fleetwood Mac in concert in 10th grade, one of my first concerts, I guess. But I found this Buckingham Nicks album. And it was Lindsey Buckingham and Stevie Nicks before they were in Fleetwood Mac. And that album became a spiritual experience on a daily basis for me. Just try putting on a pair of headphones and laying on the floor and listened without flinching, without moving, to every second of that album. And that album kind of controlled me and my relationships and my friendships. And during that last year at Brevard College, I was pretty much messed up psychologically and physically. I still, I guess, had my looks. I could still run. I could still function. I could still play basketball. But I was very confused about the whole sexuality thing and my future, and I just didn't have a whole lot of hope. It was just sort of, I felt like I was a lingering soul. And I remember one night I came in, I'd been out running, and I came through the dorm, and all these popular girls were sitting around on the couches, and they were having some kind of fucking meeting. And this one cheerleader says, "I nominate Jill," and they all started laughing. And they were trying to come up with one more nominee for the Valentines Court for the Brevard College Valentine's dance. And I just kind of rolled my eyes and I was like, whatever, just shut up. And I went on up to my room. Well, they did nominate me. And so they had this voting box in the lobby of the cafeteria. And so when everybody would go to eat breakfast, lunch, or dinner, you could cast your vote. And so then there was going to be this big old Valentines Court. So, of course, my mother was thrilled back in Georgia when I told her I'd been nominated for this thing. And it was really like a joke. And it kind of hurt my feelings because I was like, I mean, I would never say that. I acted tough because I had the tough veneer and the funny veneer, and I can take a joke. But I mean, on the deeper level, it sort of like made me feel kind of bad, you know. And so my mother sent me these candies, these shoes that had this freaking high heel, and all these girls, they got together and they were like, "We're going to do your hair and your makeup." And it was this big hilarious thing. And another friend, she had like a dress, and they had all the stuff to fix me up. And I had to have an escort. And so I asked this soccer player that was real cute. Like, if I had to be around with the guy, they had to look good. And he was really good looking, and he was kind of dull. You know, he wasn't real bright, but boy, he was a knockout to look at. And I thought, well, I'll just ask him to escort me. And when I did kind of ask him, like, jokingly, I told him it was a real stupid thing, and I downplayed it real bad. And he sort of was like, "Oh, I guess I can, you know, la la la." I go, "We're just friends, and just don't even think about that other being like a date, okay?" And he was like, "Okay." And so the girls worked on me, and I looked in the mirror, and I just felt like a fucking drag queen, you know, because I just didn't wear makeup, and my hair had been like Peter Frampton's hair. I had it permed to match Peter Frampton's hair. I mean, secretly, I never told anybody that. But so they had kind of straightened it out and curled it and put all this makeup on me, and I had this outfit dress. Ugh. And I had a bottle of 151 rum, like a little pint, in the pocket of this jacket. And when Mario came to get me at the door, when he opened the door, he had a tweed suit. He looked so good, and he looked at me, and it was like he couldn't even recognize me. So we went to the thing. We went to the gym, and they had all the lights were out, and all the people were in the audience, and you know, we had to come out in the spotlight, and everybody was cheering because he was a popular athlete, soccer player. And I was a good basketball player, and I had the group of girls that were just going crazy laughing to see me like this. And so when they got ready, they named the second runner-up and then the first runner-up, and then they announced the winner, and it was me. And the whole gym went crazy, and I thought I was going to just faint. I didn't think I was going to be able to deal with it. And so I sort of laughed, and the guy that won the king, it was Valentine's King and Queen. Well, the guy that won Valentine's King, he was a long distance runner, a cross country runner, and he looked like Jesus. He had long brown hair and a beard, and he just looked like Jesus, period, with a white 3-piece suit. And so he was shorter than me. And of course I had the heels, and I had to do a slow dance with him in the middle of the whole world. And it was just horrible. But it was kind of funny, and we all had a good laugh. And as soon as it was over, I went and dropped a hit of acid and put on a pair of army pants and a flannel pajama shirt and came back down to the dance with aviator sunglasses. And that's how I dealt with the rest of the night. So that last year was pretty wild and pretty messy, and it was getting toward the end. And one day I was in my room, and I was playing that album, Buckingham Nicks, and I rolled a joint in the album, and it had a little baggie with a little bit of pot left in it. And so I smoked some of it, and I put it out, and I looked at that strip of leather on my wrist that I'd had on there since the year before with my Brooke Shields friend. And I thought, I'm going to be leaving Brevard College. I'm leaving Brevard. I've got to get rid of this. So I got my car and I drove out to this place where she had given me that strip of leather, and it was way out in the woods, and it seemed like it was like an old cemetery. It was kind of a weird place. And I went back there, and I stood there, and I took that thing, I cut that leather strip off of my wrist, and I tied it around a rhododendron branch, kind of up above me. I reached up and I tied it, and the sun was coming down filtering through these rhododendrons. And it was probably around 5:30, 6 o'clock, and kind of dusk, and I started crying. And then when I looked at that leather, it was as if it became a serpent. And I had this horrible fear come over me. And I thought, I got to get out of these woods. I got to get out of these woods now. And I just started running, and I ripped a path through that woods. Oh my God, I was scared to death. I don't even know what it was about. And I went back, and I got back to my room, and that album was laying on the bed. And I took the album off my stereo, and I put it in the case, and I never played that album again. By now, selling ice cream had become really routine. The honeymoon was over. It wasn't fun anymore. I would kind of come and go and kind of do what I wanted to do. I could go out and sell. I could leave at 4 p.m. and go out and hit a neighborhood, or I could hit areas pretty quickly to make enough money to get by. I started hanging out with this guy, Chip. He was sort of, I think I spoke about him before. He had this really moppy big head of strawberry blonde hair and thick glasses and kind of a deadhead hippie type, but I think he was faking it. And he liked me for some reason, and we would kind of hang out. And I had to stay close to my dad's because, once again, I just didn't want to screw up and have him kick me out. And so Chip and I would sit out in the ice cream truck and listen to music and talk until way into the night, because I couldn't go in my dad's apartment because he had to go to sleep and get up and go to work. So I would hang out with Chip, and, we would sort of just be like buddies. And I could tell he was kind of like getting all enthralled with me, and it was kind of getting on my nerves. But I could just ignore it and block it out. Well, then this one day he called me and he said, do you want to like hang out? And I was like, okay. He was kind of like my new Bill. Bill and I were like really good friends, but Bill was busy trying to be a good manager at the ice cream place. And so, Chip shows up this one afternoon over at my dad's, and he drove a car over there. Usually he was in an ice cream van, but I think he borrowed his mother's car. And when he came to the door and I opened the door, he had all his hair cut off, really short, and it looked really good. And he had contacts, no glasses, and he had on this like burgundy Izod shirt, like real tight, and a pair of jeans. He looked really good. He looked real preppy. And I was like, what in the world? Like, what happened to you? And he's like, well, I just decided to make a change. And then I started realizing, I thought, oh no. And it felt kind of like date energy. And so we went out in a car. I'd gotten so used to all these ice cream trucks, it was kind of strange to be in a car. But we kind of started hanging out, and then, we would go to the gay bars, and he had sort of confessed that he thought he might be bisexual. And so I didn't care. I was kind of glad about that because I thought, well, then maybe he won't judge me so bad. And so, but we would go into the bars and I would be looking for Ann number one. And of course I had filled him in with all of my drama about that. And I remember this one night we went in and she was sitting at the bar with Karen and she just totally ignored me. And so I just would sit with him and get drunker and drunker and just seethe with jealousy and envy and horrible feelings. And so I could just turn him into somebody else, and so, we would end up going to these hotels and being together and, to try to ease this pain, to try to take this pain away from me. But it was so horrible. It was like torture. It was like when you ask somebody to scratch your back and they can't find that place that you want them to reach, and and they keep trying and you're going, no, over to the left, and it's just driving you crazy, and it's better just not even do it at all. It was kind of like that, and I felt bad, and I knew he liked me, and it was just a weird situation, so I had to start distancing myself from him. So there I was now. I'll just go back to the bars by myself. I don't need a keeper. But I noticed all these like men hanging around the ice cream shop, and they were like kind of like older men. They were hanging around Stuart, probably in their 50s, and they wore like polyester type pants, and they almost looked like used car salesmen, but they had like a rougher edge around them, and a lot of sunglasses, and they just seemed kind of seedy and dishonest. But they had opened a new branch of this ice cream company down on the south side of Atlanta, and it was very inner city. And so that territory was forbidden, and we were not supposed to go past a certain boundary line on the inside of 285. Well, I had already been going down in those areas. When I would go out to the bars, was always in those areas, and I knew all kinds of streets and places I could go and sell and, find prostitutes, and they'd become my friends. I mean, I had a whole nother life, and it'd be a quick way to sell a lot. And so somebody actually on the south side, one of the drivers had gotten my truck number and reported it. And so I've gotten a little bit of trouble by Stuart. But what's he going to do? What's Stuart going to do? Fire me? And so he sort of gave me a little lecture. And I said, yeah, but you like it when I turn all that money in, right? And he'd sort of like, well, blah, 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 kind of grumble about it. So this one night, I was just getting more down and just really, when you're chasing a feeling, when you're chasing euphoria, it gets harder and harder. And so I go out one night and I ran into these girls in the bar that I had sold ice cream to during my first year. And they worked in a screen printing place making T-shirts. And Wiki and Candy. And Wiki was the weird one that looked like Stephen Perry. And Candy was like a freckle face, strawberry shortcake. And so they were in the bar. And I think I don't know if they were together. I don't know their story, but they were Candy was real silly. And she was always just laughy and silly. And the other one was just quiet and weird. And so they started buying me shots. And the more we drank, we got drunker and drunker, and it was time for the bar to close. And they said, "Hey, do you want to come out to our house in Mableton? We've got a bottle of wild turkey." And I'm like, "Okay, sure." And so I was on my motorcycle. And so I followed them all the way to Mableton, Georgia, wherever the hell that was. And I remember when they put the key in the door and they opened the door, they flicked the light on and the light switch turned a lamp on. So it was kind of low light, but they had one of those big like telephone cable wooden spool things like in the middle of the floor. And there was a couch and it was really gross. And when that light came on, I'm not kidding you, there must have been like 500 roaches that just took off running. And I was, ooh. And they kind of laughed and said, "Oh no, we're going to have to do something about that." And I was so grossed out. But they put the stereo on and they got this bottle of wild turkey out and we started drinking it. And all I remember was just drinking wild turkey and listening to music and sort of laughing. And I didn't have a whole lot of depth to that evening. Well, I woke up in the middle of them, in a mattress on the floor, and a bottle of wild turkey at the base of the bed. I was so sick. I was not only physically sick, I was so disturbed that I had been with them and I was in that situation and I so wanted to get out of there. And so I got myself up, I got myself dressed and got out of there, and they were just passed out. I was pretty hardcore, so I think I was a little more immune to it than they were. And I got on that motorcycle and the sun was coming up and I wanted to crash that motorcycle so bad. I just wanted to crash it. I just wanted to get run over. I just wanted to die. I wanted to just end it. I just wanted to end it. I wanted to get off of this merry-go-round, and I didn't know how. I just didn't know how to do it. And I didn't have the guts to do it. I had no idea how this was going to play out.
Hammered is recorded and produced in the Blue Ridge Mountains of Asheville, North Carolina. It's narrated by Jill Haynie, produced by Maggie Briggs and Jill Haynie, and with sound design, editing, and music by Alexander Rodriguez. Our beautiful artwork was created by Lauren Caddick, and we'd like to send a special thanks out there to Minnie and Robin. You can check out our website, podcasthammered.com, and follow us on social media for updates.